In this lesson, we will be talking about display modes and layers. Inkscape offers different viewing modes to see your work in order to edit your artwork effectively or to understand how maybe somebody else has created their work. We can see different viewing modes by going into our View drop-down menu, scrolling to Display mode and selecting one of these options here. At the moment, what we have selected is the normal mode, and this is how we're able to view our work, how we usually would view it. So if we go back to our View drop-down menu, go to Display mode, we can select, for example, Outline. Now you will notice immediately Outline will only show the stroke, so the outline and the path of the drawings that we have. And you can notice, for example, how it is useful as it appears here that there is a drawing hidden behind the heart that we have drawn here. So it makes it easier when we are in this mode to select this and move it out to make it visible again. So then all we need to do is go back to our View drop-down menu, select Display mode and select Normal again. And now the other drawing that had been hidden behind this heart is now visible. Another very useful viewing feature that we have is always under the View drop-down menu, Display mode, and we can select Outline Overlay. This will show the outline, the stroke of our drawing above the filled in part. This way we can very easily take our node tool, select our stroke, our path, and be able to modify it very easily with it being above the drawing. So notice how much easier it is now to go in and make changes to our drawing like so. And again, if we want to go back to normal mode, we also have a keyboard shortcut, which is the Control key and the number 5. And this way we can go back to our normal mode. Another very useful viewing feature that we have is to be able to have a split view, a duplicate view of our window. This allows you to open a duplicate so you can view your work in two separate windows. One, for example, with a close-up for editing, and the other one with a view of the entire image. Or, for example, you can have one window with a certain display mode, like outline, and the other one in normal mode. We can do this again by going up to our View drop-down menu, scroll down to Duplicate Window, and this will open another window that is zoomed in. So what we can do, for example, is resize these windows and put them side to side. Or if we want to switch between one window and the other, all we need to do is use the keyboard shortcut Control and Tab. And that way we can switch between one window and the other. But let's position them side to side to see how this can be effective. So for example, by positioning them one next to the other, we can have a zoomed in view of this one and then a zoomed out view on the second one. And notice that whatever we do in the first one will automatically also happen in the second one. So if I go and try to modify this, notice how the changes will appear in our other window automatically. So we can have a more detailed view in this window and a larger view of what's happening in the window on the right. Another option that we can do while we have a split view is change, for example, the viewing method. So we can go to the View drop-down menu, Display mode, and select Outline. So now in this window, we can have a very, very clear view of our drawing and of our path. We can modify it and do whatever we want to do, and it would all be mirrored onto the right view of our screen. While we are in this mode, we can also select our select and transform tool, and by selecting Ctrl Tab on our keyboard, we can switch from one object to the other, make slight changes and see them in the other window. Again, Ctrl Tab, move to another image, and again make changes and see the difference in our view here on the right. And then if we want to go back to a one screen only, all we need to do is X out of one of these two windows, and we will be able to continue working freely inside of one window only. So now that we are back to one window only, we can see some other viewing features. If we select the shortcut Shift and the F11 key, we can get rid of some of the viewing options in our screen, like the toolbars, the command bars, and so on. We can also select it again and get all of our original view back with all of the toolbars and command bars again visible. So by selecting Shift F11, we can have a very clean view of our work and what we are doing. Shift 11 again to go back to the original viewing mode. So now that we have seen all the various viewing modes and possibilities that we have inside of Inkscape, we can start talking about layers. Layers are one of the most important features that we can learn when working in a graphic design software. You will notice this slowly while working and learning this program, that layers really are fundamental to create efficient work and reduce work time. You can imagine layers like a stack of transparent pages, one on top of the other, with a drawing or feature or filter in each different page, remaining visible on top of all the other pages. Layers are very useful when you have a very complex piece of work with lots of different elements to it. This way, if you have an element in one layer, you can decide to keep working on it without touching any of the other drawings by putting them in a different layer, for example. And that way you can hide or lock that layer and then continue working on another one. But let's go see this more in detail. There are three places in Inkscape where we can access layers. The first one is the layer drop-down menu up here, and we can select layers and objects to open the window, this window right here, where we can access all the layers and work on them specifically. Another way to open this is by selecting the keyboard shortcut Shift, Ctrl, and the letter L. And this will open our layer window here on the right. And the last way to access layers is here in the bottom, where you can see examples. This is the name of the current layer that is open now, and we can view it here at the bottom also. To show the layers more in detail and how they work, I have quickly created more layers, which I will shortly explain how to do, just so that we can view even more how these work. So for example, if I were to move one of these drawings here, you will notice that this yellow diamond is above of this heart. And if we select the yellow diamond, you will notice that also this layer 2 is selected. If I were to move this below the other layers, you will see now what could happen. So now I will select this heart here and, for example, select the layer and then press on this arrow to move the layer above. And notice how now the yellow diamond has disappeared, but in actual fact it is just below the heart, as you may notice here. So view each one of these layers as a transparent page. And obviously, if on that transparent page there is a filled in object, it will create opacity, but there will always be another page below that we can view like so. There are various things that we can do with layers. We can make them invisible or visible again, simply by clicking on this little eye icon here on the right. And we can also select, for example, in this layer, to make one object visible or invisible and keep the other one visible or invisible. So for example, in this layer, I have an object that at the moment is invisible. So I can click on the eye icon and have it reappear here. Or for example, I can make one of the two options invisible, but still have the layer itself visible. So very easily, just hover your mouse over the layers and this little eye icon will appear. Right next to it, you may notice this little lock. This is another very useful feature. At the moment, you may notice that we are able to click all of the different objects. We can modify them if we want, like so. But if now I were to go and hover over this layer and select this little lock icon, now I won't be able to select this anymore, even if I drag a window over it. Notice that the object below has been selected, but the heart hasn't. And also if I take my node tool and I click on it, nothing will happen because it is locked. So very easily, all you need to do is reselect the little lock icon to unlock it and then be able to modify it, move it, and do whatever you please. We also have the possibility to rename layers, the same way that I did here with this layer, calling it examples. It's very easy. All you need to do is double click on the layer and then rename it. So we could call this, for example, examples 2. And now we have renamed our layer. We can also add layers very easily, selecting this icon above that says create a new layer. So let's just select it. And this little window will appear. So Inkscape has this feature that it recognizes what the other layers are called, and it will give you a suggestion of what you can call the new layer. So in this case, it is suggesting that I call it examples 3. We also have the possibility to choose the position of the layer. So we can choose above the current one because I have examples 2 selected. We can choose to position this above the examples 2, or we can choose below it or as a sub-layer of current. So that means that we could create a layer inside of this layer. And that is only useful if you have very, very complex projects that you are working on. For now, we can select above current and say add. And notice now that we have a new layer above. You may also notice that this layer doesn't have these little arrows on the left next to it. That is because we don't have anything inside of this layer at the moment. There are no drawings, no objects inside of it. And that is the next feature that we can talk about, is moving objects and drawings into other layers. So considering this layer has 2 drawings inside of it, we can choose one of them and move it. All we need to do is right click on the object that we want to move, and this options menu will open up. We will scroll to move to layer, select, and now inside of this window, we will decide where we want to move it to. So we have just created the examples 3 layer. So we will click on it and then select move. And now you will notice that this object is now inside of the examples 3 layer. You may also notice that every time we select a layer, the one that has been selected previously automatically deselects. So that is a very interesting fact to keep note of, as you don't need to worry about deselecting each time. It will do it automatically. We also have the possibility to duplicate a layer. So for example, if we have a drawing that we want to duplicate, we can simply duplicate the layer. So what we will do is right click on this again and then scroll to duplicate layer. Notice that it has created a layer 2 copy, and it has the same type of object on the inside. So all we do is select it, and if we move it, we can see that it is an exact duplicate of the first one. Obviously, we also have the option to delete a layer, and we can do that in 2 ways. We can either go up to this little icon here on the top right corner, or we can right click again and select delete layer, and it will disappear. So you will notice by right clicking, this options menu opens, and there are various other options inside of here. So we saw how to create a new layer, how to add a layer. We saw how to duplicate and also delete a layer, and also how to rename one. We also have the option to layer to group, so to create a group. We can move layers, raise or lower, so we can move them up or down like we did with these arrows here on the top. We also can hide, show other layers, which is a very interesting feature, as we can leave one layer visible and decide to make all of the other ones invisible. So let's select it to see. And notice how now all our little eye icons have been switched off, and in this one it is on. So we have switched off, we have hidden all the other layers except for layer 2. But let's open our options again and select, for example, hide all layers. So now all of our layers are invisible. We can open our options again and select show all layers. And now all of our layers are visible again. Let's go back into the options, right clicking. We also have the option to lock, unlock other layers. So again, we can keep one layer unlocked and decide to lock all the other ones. We can decide to lock all of the layers, and then we can also decide to unlock all of the layers. So you will notice how useful and how important layers are as you are slowly learning how to use this program. They will definitely be time saving and definitely will help with being more efficient with your work. So now that we have seen all the various viewing methods and how to use layers and what they are, we can end our lesson here. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment box below. And if you want to give our channel some support, you can subscribe and stay updated on all our new courses. Thanks for following along. I will see you in the next video.